We continue our College Sports Now coverage live from Indianapolis. We got Lucas Oil Stadium behind us, and we got Brian Jeffries, the voice of the Cats, longtime voice of the Cats. You were there in 97, right?
I was there in 97, yep. I was here in 97, yeah.
And you're back.
And we're back.
I want to lead with the Tommy Lloyd news because this broke about an hour ago. You're here. Arizona's got a long-term deal with Tommy Lloyd. He's going to stay in Tucson. That's a big deal, Brian.
It is a big deal because the fan base loves him, number one, and the success he's had in 5 years and now gets the Wildcats to the Final Four. I mean, it was a situation that I think a lot of people were a little nervous about, but at the same time they were hoping this would happen, and it couldn't happen at a better time because there was a lot of speculation out there, and Tommy had, kind of stayed neutral on it. But I think that, and I don't have any insight, but I'll tell you this, he grew up in the state of Washington. He's been a West Coast guy all his life. He's got a great thing going on in Tucson right now, not only his job, but just his lifestyle. And so it would have really surprised me if he made the move. You never know these days.
Sure.
But I'm happy for him. Everybody's happy for him, and I know the current team is, and the community, and everybody involved.
Everybody can just kind of exhale, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, now we get to play basketball on Saturday, and hopefully on Monday. I'm going to ask you about Michigan in a little bit. But the Tommy Lloyd story, when Arizona hired him, Brian, he'd never been a head coach before. Longtime assistant at Gonzaga. He's been in Tucson for 5 years. But it's felt like it's been a home run hire since day one, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, first of all, he's a regular guy. He's the type of guy that you can sit around and talk to, and that's the way he lives his life. That's the way he comes off in person, and I think the fan base kind of saw that early on. And then if you studied where he was at for 2 decades plus, playing under Mark Few at Gonzaga, you kind of saw the style of basketball that he would bring with him. He's made his own tweaks, of course, but it's a lot of the same principles you see that Gonzaga plays with, and that's something the fans love. They love the up-tempo type of game. That's what Lute Olson had going for a long time at Arizona, and so it was a great marriage early on, and, of course, he's been very successful all 5 years, and now, the ultimate is here.
Yeah, what was it like being in San Diego knowing that Arizona was going back to their first Final Four, the confetti's falling? It had been 25 years, believe it or not.
And it didn't feel like that long to me. I don't know why, but maybe the years have just flown by. I don't know what it was. But, yeah, it's very special. You get a little emotional about it because you know how difficult it is to get here.
Sure.
And too much had been written about Arizona's failures, that they'd gotten to the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. They come within a shot of getting to the Final Four, et cetera. And so, but we know how tough it is to win those first 4 games. And so, when they won that game, you feel relief, you feel excitement because you know what's ahead, and I know the community's just been, I don't know if anybody slept here for the last week or so.
Yeah, it's funny. Other than that halftime deficit against Purdue, you're down 7. It's been a relatively, I don't want to say easy. It's not easy, but Arizona's just been so efficient on offense as they have been all season, Brian. They've just been kind of cruising along. What did you notice in those halftime adjustments against Purdue in the Elite Eight?
I don't know that they made a lot of adjustments. I mean, there's a couple things they had to do. Jaden Smith had a great first half. They had to figure out a way from keeping him from penetrating and opening up their offense, even though, he was their leading scorer in the first half. But his ability to distribute the ball was a big part of it as well. So they had to slow him down somehow, kind of get him off his game, which they did in the second half. But I think it was just a matter of Arizona saying, we got to go out and play our game. And this team has found a way to win, and that's kind of the way I've looked at it. They've lost 2 games, and you could look at reasons why they lost those 2 games. But every other game, even though they found themselves in tough situations over the season, which you can imagine being highly ranked, number 1 for a long time, is that they figure it out. They just find a way. A lot of it's, a senior leader in Jaden Bradley at point guard, I think, that has kind of led the way to find the way.
Yeah, the transition from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. I know Arizona's a proud basketball program, but that league, Brian, was loaded at the top. I mean, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas is always a problem. Texas Tech, which beat you guys in Tucson. But, the strength of that league, you had to feel like your iron sharpens iron, so to speak, as you head into the postseason, right?
Oh, absolutely. Great point. Because in the Pac-12, and I grew up around the Pac-12, Pac-10, et cetera, I miss it. It was an outstanding league. However, there were some places you went in the Pac-12 where you could almost chalk up the W before you got there. Not only the strength of the programs, but all just lack of a fan base. It was now in the Big 12, everywhere you go, the place is packed. It's high-level basketball. You mentioned, so I really up and down this league at some point or another. every one of those teams now has been strong enough to beat anybody else in the league. And so it was eye-opening last year, the first time we went around, just to see the atmosphere everywhere you went and the outstanding coaching, etc. And so this year, you looked at the schedule, and the back half of that schedule was loaded, and everybody knew that going in, and the Wildcats were very successful with it. So, yeah, it's a tough league, and it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. I'll say that as a neutral. Talking with Brian Jeffries, radio voice of Arizona. You can catch Brian's broadcast in the Arizona Radio Network, streaming on the Varsity app on Saturday night. Brian, when you look at Michigan, you know the Spider-Man meme where they're just kind of pointing at each other? Arizona, Michigan kind of feels similar in a couple ways, right? Just the roster breakdown, the positionless basketball that both of these teams play. That's going to be a fun one on Saturday night. What are you expecting in that matchup?
You kind of think, Stephen, that since early in the season when these two teams started to take off, that maybe they were on a collision course. I know late in the season that you saw, well, UConn came on, Florida, Duke, etc. There were some other teams there, but these two teams, just for some reason or another, just had a feeling that they were going to make it here to Indianapolis. Never easy, but they got it here. So, yeah, I agree that the front line of both teams is very equal in terms of their size and their ability to score the basketball and defend. So is it the backcourts? Again, I think you can find equal things on either side. Lute Olson told me years ago when I was first getting used to this is that guard play is so important in the NCAA tournament. That was his belief. He had a guy named Miles Simon and then another one named Mike Bibby in '97 that led them to the championship. So I'm looking at it this way. If the two front courts cancel out each other in the semifinal game, whose backcourt is going to be the better one and maybe lead them to a victory?
Yeah, it's a great point. Lute Olson knew a thing or two about basketball. It was cool, too, to see Tommy Lloyd in San Diego immediately reference Lute, right? Like that again, that's part of the reason why Arizona fans love him so much. All right, Brian, I'm going to let you go on this one because I asked the other play-by-play guys the same thing. How do you handle the elevated court? Like, you're a taller guy, so that's got to be an advantage because you're eye level with the floor. You're about a foot taller than the floor with where you're seating. But from a broadcaster standpoint, how do you handle that with depth perception and the like?
Well, it's not going to be easy. I sat there during practice today just trying to get a handle on it, and we've been through this before. In fact, here in Indianapolis twice, not only in the Final Four, but also we were here for a Sweet 16 game. And so one thing I will look at, it's the three-point line at the opposite end that is the biggest challenge. And so I'm just hoping the game officials got their arms up early on those shots, and that's probably going to be the ideal thing. But you just hope that the game is as up-tempo as you expect it, and then you ignore the floor. And hey, look, you're sitting in the front row at the Final Four. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and good news for you, Arizona doesn't shoot a lot of threes, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so they're not reliant on the three-pointer. It's not like you're chucking up 40 a game. Brian Jeffries, longtime voice of the Cats, great to see you. Have a great call on Saturday, okay?
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.
There you go.